The war was over. For decades, the Galactic Concordance had battled the Zyphar Dominion, a ruthless empire that had spread destruction across the known galaxy. The Zyphar had crushed entire civilizations under their war machine, enslaved entire species, and reduced planets to lifeless husks. But now, they were no more. At the center of the ruined Zyphar homeworld, a great fleet gathered. Thousands of warships, bearing the banners of dozens of species, hovered above the shattered remains of Zyphar Prime. Fires still raged in the broken cities below, the once mighty capital world reduced to ruin. The Zyphar's last defenses had collapsed just days before, and their leaders had been executed in swift, merciless trials. Victory belonged to the Concordance. Admiral Vorkan stood on the bridge of the valorous Ascendancy, his four clawed hands clasped behind his back as he watched the holographic projection of the battlefield. He was Vurani, a towering, reptilian being with ridged armor plating along his spine and a face lined with scars from wars long past. He had led the Concordance forces to victory, and now he would oversee the final moment of triumph. The fleet's communication channels buzzed with celebration. Commanders toasted their success, officers made speeches, and planetary governments pledged a new era of peace. Even the Galactic Council broadcast a declaration of victory, calling this day the dawn of an age free from tyranny. Yet, as Vorkan stood there, staring into the void, something unsettled him. A warrior's instinct, honed over years of battle, warned him that something was wrong. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Saria, his chief sensor officer, her furred ears twitching with unease. "We're detecting movement at the system's edge. An unknown fleet has just entered the sector." Vorkan turned sharply. "Unknown? Zyphar remnants?" Saria hesitated. "No, sir. Their energy signatures don't match any known database. They're something else." A silence fell over the bridge. Vorkan narrowed his reptilian eyes. After so many years of war, he had no patience for surprises. "Put on the main display." The holoscreen flickered, revealing the incoming fleet. The moment he saw it, Vorkan felt a chill creep through his veins. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their hulls were sleek, dark, and angular, built for war with brutal efficiency. They moved in tight, disciplined formation, their coordination almost too precise, more like a machine than an organic fleet. And despite their smaller numbers, something about them radiated danger. "Size estimate," Vorkan demanded. Saria's hands trembled over a console. "Approximately 200 vessels, sir." Vorkan scoffed. "Only 200? Against thousands of Concordance warships? This is nothing more than a scouting force." But then another officer, a younger one, spoke up. "Sir, they're transmitting a message." Vorkan's eyes narrowed. "Play it." A moment of static, then a voice, calm, confident, and distinctly alien. "This is Admiral James Calloway of the Terran Dominion. You are trespassing in human claimed space." Silence fell over the bridge. Vorkan's claws tapped against the metal railing. "Repeat that transmission." The message played again, and this time, the word sent a ripple of unease through the command crew. Human. That word should not have meant anything. The official records held nothing about any Terran Dominion. No empire by that name had ever been recognized by the Concordance. In fact, the only known reference to humans was buried in ancient historical archives, a primitive, pre-FTL race that had vanished centuries ago when their homeworld, Earth, was destroyed by the Zyphar. "Humans are extinct," one officer muttered. "Aren't they?" Vorkan felt a deep, unfamiliar sense of unease. He had spent his entire life fighting, had stood against some of the fiercest warlords the galaxy had ever known. But something about this fleet, about that voice, sent a warning through his instincts. "Open a channel," he commanded. The screen flickered, and an image resolved, revealing a man. He was tall, his features sharp, his eyes dark and unwavering. A uniform of dark gray covered his broad frame, its high collar adorned with an unfamiliar insignia, a black star surrounded by a ring of steel. Unlike most species, his face showed little emotion. No arrogance, no fear, just calm certainty. Vorkan stepped forward, his voice firm. Admiral Calloway, this is Admiral Vorkan of the Galactic Concordance. You claim this is human space, yet no record of your people exists. Identify yourself and your purpose immediately. Calloway's expression remained unreadable. Admiral Vorkan, we do not recognize the authority of the Concordance. You are in violation of our borders. Withdraw immediately. A stunned silence filled the bridge. The idea was absurd. The Concordance had just destroyed the largest threat in the galaxy. This fleet, this Terran Dominion, was an unknown force, barely 200 ships strong. Yet Calloway spoke as if he was the one in control. Vorkan's jaw tightened. You are outnumbered 100 to 1, human. If you do not stand down, we will be forced to consider your presence an act of hostility. For the first time, Calloway's expression changed. It was not fear, nor was it anger. It was amusement. You misunderstand, Admiral, Calloway said, his voice even. You are in our territory, and you are the ones who should be worried. Then, before Vorkan could respond, the first Terran warship moved, with speed no Concordance vessel should have been capable of. The screen erupted with alerts, and the battle began. Admiral Vorkan had seen countless battles, but never had he witnessed an enemy move like this. The Terran warships cut through the void with unnatural precision, each movement calculated and deliberate. Their formation did not waver, did not falter. It was as if the fleet was controlled by a singular intelligence. And yet, according to the readings, these were organic pilots, not machines. A single Terran vessel broke formation and advanced toward the Concordance fleet. Not recklessly, not aggressively, just a calm, deliberate approach. The act itself was an insult. The Terrans knew they were outnumbered, and yet displayed no hesitation, no fear. The bridge of the valorous ascendancy was deathly silent as Vorkan studied the tactical display. He finally broke the tension. Status on their weapons systems? Lieutenant Saria's voice was hushed. Unknown. Their energy signatures are strange. We're detecting high-density magnetic fields, adaptive shield oscillations, and, she hesitated, some kind of quantum distortion field, but our scanners can't penetrate it. Meaning, Vorkan pressed. We have no idea what their ships are capable of, Admiral. A cold weight settled in his gut. That was unacceptable. In war, knowledge was power, and right now, the Concordance had none. Open a secure channel, he ordered. The view screen flickered, and once more, Admiral James Calloway's face filled the bridge. Still the same calm stare. Still the same unshakable certainty. Admiral Vorkan, Calloway greeted, his tone polite but distant. I assume you're reconsidering your presence here. Vorkan stepped forward, his voice controlled. I do not know who you are, human, but you vastly overestimate your position. We are the might of the Galactic Concordance. We have destroyed the Zyphar Dominion, the greatest military power this galaxy has ever known. If you truly are human, then your people were wiped from existence centuries ago. Explain yourselves. Calloway's expression did not change. You are correct, Admiral. The Zyphar tried to exterminate humanity. He leaned forward slightly. They failed. Vorkan's claws gripped the railing. That is impossible. Earth was destroyed. A small, knowing smile crossed Calloway's lips. Was it? The words sent an uneasy ripple through the bridge crew. Saria turned, her voice barely above a whisper. Sir, I accessed classified Concordance records. They confirm that Earth was attacked by the Zyphar, but she hesitated, ears twitching. There were no confirmed survivors, only assumptions. Vorkan's tail flicked in frustration. Had they made a mistake? Had the Zyphar failed to finish the job? Even if some humans survived, he said carefully, your people could not have built a fleet of this scale without the Concordance knowing. Calloway tilted his head. You assume we required your knowledge. The implications were disturbing. The Concordance had believed itself to be the center of galactic civilization. If the Terrans had existed in secrecy, advancing their technology for centuries unnoticed, what else had they built? This conversation is pointless, Vorkan finally said. Your fleet is outnumbered, and we will not tolerate threats. Stand down. For the first time, Calloway exhaled, a quiet breath, but one that somehow carried disappointment. Let me be clear, Admiral, he said. The Terran Dominion does not seek war. We have survived in the shadows, far from the politics of the Concordance. We have seen what your peace brings: slavery, destruction, genocide. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we will never bow to the Concordance. A low murmur spread through the command crew. Some looked to Vorkan for guidance. Others glanced at the view screen with genuine unease. The Concordance had prided itself on order, but there were truths the Council did not share with the public. Species that had resisted were crushed. Civilizations that did not conform were re-educated. Had the humans suffered the same fate and escaped into the dark? Vorkan refused to let doubt cloud his judgment. The Concordance was the law of the galaxy. If these humans sought to defy it, they would be put in their place. You claim you do not seek war, Vorkan said. Yet you have disrupted this system, threatened a fleet that has just restored peace to the galaxy. You will submit to Concordance authority, or we will use force. Calloway's expression hardened. That, he said quietly, would be unwise. A tense silence filled the bridge. Then, a warning klaxon blared. Admiral, Saria's voice was sharp. One of our patrol ships just fired a warning shot. Plasma burst aimed near their lead vessel. Vorkan turned sharply. Who gave that order? Before anyone could answer, the human ship reacted. No hesitation. No panic. One precise counterattack. The Terran vessel shifted with unnatural speed, almost as if it had predicted the shot before it even happened. A single burst of railgun fire. A projectile moving so fast that Concordance sensors barely registered it, struck the patrol ship's shield emitter. The alien vessel immediately lost power. Its shields collapsed in an instant. No explosion. No wreckage. Just a clean, surgical disablement. 100 officers on the bridge froze in place. The implications were terrifying. The Concordance had believed its plasma shields to be invulnerable. Humanity had just proven them wrong in seconds. Vorkan stared at the screen. Calloway's expression remained unreadable. That, the human admiral said calmly, was a warning. The weight in Vorkan's chest grew heavier. The Concordance had dismissed the Terrans as a minor, long-dead species. They were wrong. And if they had miscalculated this badly, what else were the humans capable of? Admiral Vorkan had fought in 100 battles, but he had never felt this kind of tension before. The bridge of the valorous ascendancy was deathly silent. Every officer, every crew member, every soul aboard the flagship knew. This was a moment that would decide the future of the galaxy. On the view screen, the Terran fleet did not retreat. They did not flinch. They simply waited. Vorkan's claws dug into the command railing. This was impossible. No species, no empire, could remain hidden for so long and emerge with technology beyond the Concordance's grasp. And yet, humanity had done exactly that. His instincts told him what his mind refused to accept. This was not a battle he was prepared for, but he was not about to let that stop him. He turned sharply. Full fleet alert. Prepare for engagement. A younger officer hesitated. Sir, are we certain? Vorkan's voice was steel. They just disabled one of our ships in a single shot. That was a warning. If we do nothing, we show weakness. And I will not let the Concordance bow to an enemy we do not understand. The command crew scrambled into action. Shields activated. Plasma cannons primed. Fighters deployed. The Concordance war machine moved into formation. Thousands of ships aligning with flawless precision. The sheer size of the fleet a reminder of their dominance. Across the void, the humans did not move. Vorkan bared his teeth. We will show them why the Concordance is the ruler of this galaxy. Fire. The first shots of the new war erupted into space. A mistake too late to realize. Thousands of plasma rounds roared toward the Terran fleet. A wall of destruction. An overwhelming display of firepower that no species could withstand. But the humans did not run. They moved. In an instant, the Terran fleet executed a maneuver that should not have been possible. Their ships did not accelerate normally, did not drift with momentum. They pivoted instantly, dodging the incoming fire with an unnatural precision beyond biological reaction times. Vorkan's eyes widened. No organic pilot can react that fast. Then the counterattack began. A single Terran battleship returned fire, a single round from what appeared to be a railgun. Vorkan scoffed. One shot? Against a fleet? Then the projectile hit. A Concordance cruiser, one of the most heavily armored vessels in the fleet, detonated in an instant. The bridge crew froze. It hadn't just been destroyed. It had been erased. Sensors screamed as the readings came in. No plasma, no heat-based explosion, just sheer kinetic devastation. The ship's hull had been pierced through in less than a second, its core ripped apart before its shields even registered the impact. Saria's voice was barely a whisper. Their weapons, they're moving at relativistic speeds. That meant one thing. Humanity had perfected mass-based weaponry beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. And then the rest of the Terran fleet opened fire. The fall of the Concordance's confidence. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted minutes. The Concordance had always relied on superiority of numbers, defensive formations, and overwhelming firepower. But none of that mattered now. The Terran warships were too fast, too precise, too efficient. Where Concordance ships fired thousands of rounds, the humans fired one. And one was all they needed. Destroyers vanished in silent explosions. Battle cruisers were gutted before they could even turn a flee. Entire formations collapsed under pinpoint railgun strikes that no shields could withstand. Admiral Vorkan watched in horror as his mighty fleet, the fleet that had crushed the Zyphar Dominion, was torn apart with terrifying ease. This was not a battle. It was an execution. His tactical officers screamed conflicting reports. Shields failing across the line. We're losing power in Sector 7. Enemy ships predicting our movements before we make them. Vorkan's blood ran cold. The humans weren't just faster. They weren't just stronger. They knew the Concordance's tactics. They anticipated their moves. They had studied them. For how long? Centuries? Had humanity been watching them this entire time, preparing for the moment to strike? The realization hit him like a physical blow. The Concordance had never been the rulers of the galaxy. They had simply been playing their role in a war that had never ended. And humanity? They had been waiting. The warning that would haunt the galaxy. The flagship shook violently as another round grazed its hull. Emergency, sirens blared. Vorkan had no choice left. Retreat. All forces retreat. It was not a decision he had ever expected to make. Not in his entire career. But the alternative was annihilation. The surviving ships, only a fraction of the once mighty fleet, turned and fled, battered and broken. As they limped away, a final transmission came through the comms. Calloway, still calm, still in control. Humanity remembers. We do not forgive. We do not forget. The war isn't over. It never was. Then, silence. The Terran fleet did not pursue. They did not gloat. They simply watched, as if they already knew the truth. The Concordance would never challenge them again. Admiral Vorkan sat alone in his chambers aboard the Valorous Ascendancy, staring at the dim glow of the emergency lights. His flagship, once the unshakable symbol of Concordance power, was now a crippled husk, limping through space with the last remnants of his fleet. They had lost. The Concordance had never suffered such a defeat. Not against the Zyphar, not against any uprising, not against any enemy that had dared challenge their rule. But this wasn't just a defeat. It was humiliation. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His door slid open, and Lieutenant Saria entered. The feline officer's normally sharp, disciplined posture was gone. She looked shaken, ears low, her uniform still stained with the smoke and debris from the battle. "Sir," she said quietly, "we've received orders from High Command." Vorkan didn't respond immediately. He already knew what the message contained. "Read it," he finally said. Saria swallowed. "Admiral Vorkan, by decree of the Concordance High Council, you are to return immediately for debriefing and strategic assessment. The Terran Dominion's emergence is to be classified at the highest level. All surviving officers are to be placed under strict command oversight. No reports of this battle are to be made public. Vorkin let out a bitter laugh. Of course, the High Council didn't want panic. If word spread that the mighty Concordance fleet had been crushed, there would be chaos. The illusion of control had to be maintained, even if it was a lie. Saria hesitated. Sir, what do we do? Vorkin finally looked up, his eyes dark with something she had never seen before. Doubt. We do as we are ordered, he said slowly. We return. We report. And we watch. He rose to his full height, his massive frame casting a shadow over the dimly lit room. The humans are not just a lost species, Lieutenant. They are not some rogue faction hiding in the dark. His claws tapped against the steel desk, his voice barely above a whisper. There's something else entirely. Saria hesitated. Sir, what if they were never truly gone? What if they had been out there, growing, waiting for this moment? Vorkin closed his eyes. He had spent decades believing the Concordance was the supreme power in the galaxy. He had crushed revolts, destroyed empires, ensured order. But now, for the first time, he realized something chilling. They had never ruled the galaxy. They had been allowed to believe they did. And now, humanity had returned, and they were in control now. The High Council's response. The journey back to Concordance space was silent. No celebrations. No war songs. No declarations of victory. Every officer aboard the surviving fleet knew what had happened. They knew the truth, that the Concordance was no longer the undisputed power in the galaxy. When they finally arrived at the Concordance homeworld, Vorkin was summoned immediately to the High Council chambers. The council was waiting, a semicircle of powerful figures, each representing one of the Concordance's core species. Their robes were pristine, their faces calm, but their eyes betrayed their fear. Grand Chancellor Ave Elise, an elder of the Avani species, leaned forward. Admiral Vorkin, he said slowly, explain yourself. Vorkin stood before them, hands clasped behind his back. The Terran Dominion exists, he said simply. They are powerful, more powerful than us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some refused to believe it. Others already knew, but refused to accept it. Ave Elise narrowed his eyes. You mean to tell us that a species we deemed extinct has returned and defeated our greatest fleet? Vorkin nodded. Yes. Another council member, a hulking Brakthar warlord, slammed a fist against the table. Then we must retaliate, muster the full strength of the Concordance, and eradicate them before they can become a true threat. Vorkin met the Brakthar's eyes. If you do that, Chancellor, you will doom us all. Silence. He continued. The Terrans were not fighting at their full strength. They sent 200 ships against thousands, and they did not even pursue us after our retreat. He let that sink in. They could have wiped us all out, he said. They chose not to. Avalis's voice was quiet. You believe they're testing us. I believe they're watching us, Vorkin corrected. And if we act recklessly, we will not just lose a fleet. We will lose everything. The council chamber grew deathly silent. For the first time in the history of the Concordance, the High Council understood what true fear was. They were not the rulers of the galaxy. They were not the ones deciding its future. And for the first time, they had no idea what would happen next. The future belongs to the unknown. In the dark void of space, at the edges of Concordance territory, the Terran Dominion fleet remained unseen. Admiral James Calloway stood aboard his command deck, hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant stars. A junior officer approached. Sir, Concordance fleets are withdrawing from the sector. No further engagements reported. Calloway nodded. Good. The officer hesitated. What are our orders, sir? Do we move forward? Calloway exhaled, staring into the endless abyss of space. No, he said. Not yet. The officer frowned. Sir, Calloway's gaze never wavered. They will come to us, he said simply. They always do. A slow smile crossed his lips. The Concordance thought the war was over. His voice was quiet, but firm. It hasn't even begun.